to your point, we're talking about Brock Purdy this morning because Jared Goff got paid
$200 million for 4 years.
170 guaranteed bones there for Jared Goff, who, you know what? Brian and Palo Alto called last second. We love Brian. He says he is a very good, okay type of player. He's maxed out his career. It's a pretty good career if you take a team to a Super Bowl and the Rams.
Two teams.
But he took another team and the Detroit Lions, who have been god-awful for most of my life, your life, and everyone's life.
They were both
They have been synonymous with dumpster fires when it comes to professional sports in America, and he took them a quarter or two away from the Super Bowl. Joe Shasky, the Super Bowl.
I know. And he
deserves to get paid.
I would agree with you, and I just think that he fits everything that they're trying to do. And look, is it an overpay? Sure. But
for them, it's not.
Let me ask you this. If I were to just go around and I would say, who's not overpaid at quarterback?
Oof. Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now. Who's not overpaid?
Josh Allen?
Josh Allen.
I feel like he gets way too much critique.
Well, this is where Bonte would push back on me, but Bonte's not here because last year I said all year long I'm taking Brock Purdy over Josh Allen for last year. I got people ripped my head off about last year. Brock was an MVP candidate. Come on. He was better than Josh Allen last year. That's just a fact. What? It's not even a hot take. Last year, Brock Purdy was better.
If they could trade Brock Purdy for Josh Allen, they do that.
That's fine for the future. But right now, I'm the best bargain in sports is Brock Purdy. And once I pay Josh Allen, then goodbye Stephon Diggs, goodbye Brandon Ayuk, goodbye.
Yeah, but I think he's so good, he's going to be able to make it work.
Well, let's see.
Yeah, we will see.
Right? Well,
we absolutely will see. But that's kind of the same equation that everyone around the league is saying about Brock Purdy.
I think Lamar Jackson's a bargain right now. He's won 2 MVPs now.
He's done nothing in the playoffs.
He's gotten to the conference title game.
He had his first good playoff game this year. He's 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and has basically won 1 playoff game in, 4?
And he's making $50 million a year, too.
But I also believe he is that entire offense.
He is. So he's Peyton Manning early on in his career where we all said, he can't get over the hump. He's still 27 years old, and there's no shame in losing to Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. The Niners know all about that.
Yeah, that's true. But he played terrible. Brock played significantly better in the game against the Chiefs than what Lamar did. If we're being fair.
That's fine. He played better, but his better was still only okay. If we're just going to go there, yes, Lamar wasn't great.
Lamar was bad.
Lamar's fine.
He threw some bad picks in that game.
Again, that defense is no joke.
No doubt.
Yes.
No doubt.
But to your point, yes. But I still think from what I'm getting from the offensive end there in Baltimore, Lamar's still a bargain for me.
Okay.
Yes.
Who else?
I would say Burrow, but the injuries are starting to concern me.
That's to me, he's the number one risk.
Yes.
When he came into Levi Stadium and dismantled the Niners, it was one of the best games I've ever seen an opposing quarterback play. He was spectacular.
You guys talked about it. When he checked into the QB, the quarterback run there.
Spectacular.
It was unbelievable. So I go those guys, and Patrick Mahomes. I'm interested to see how the Rams look again with Matt Stafford, who was healthy last year, and he was really good last year.
I think he's an excellent player.
But
he's flipped my opinion of him.
Getting older. Dak Prescott. And this is where we're starting to get into the Dak Prescott, Kirk
I'd rather
Cousins.
have Jared Goff than Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
And I think both are good quarterbacks, not great. I think they're good. I think a majority of people think they stink. They do not stink. They're good quarterbacks. You're going to win double-digit games with both guys if you have the right pieces around them. But this is the conversation with both those guys. Mm-hmm. When they soak up too much of the cap, now you don't have the right pieces around them. Mm-hmm. And now you're asking them to do more. And so now I'm getting back to Brock Purdy.
Now you have Ezekiel Elliott as your running back.
Right?
Oh, my God.
I get back to Brock Purdy. I actually think Brock can do a little more than both of those quarterbacks. So I believe slightly more in him if I take away a piece. I feel like he can make some things work.
Elevate the talent around.
But I don't have evidence to support my case. It's my hunch, and it's me going off watching hyper-focused 3 times. I watch every game 3 times, watching what he's done, the body of work. And again, it's just a hunch. I don't love it. I don't love paying him that kind of money, but I also understand it's part of doing business.
It's a gamble, to be sure. Whenever you pay these guys, it's a gamble. You are projecting the future. We think he is going to be a value at some point at this price point because it's only going to go up and up and up. And we are banking, if we're the 49ers, Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, we are banking that Brock Purdy will elevate the talent around him. That's where Ricky Pearsall comes in.
Yes.
Because that's going to be one of the test subjects in all of this, is when they move on, if they move on, off Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk. We'll wait and see what that contract situation looks like this year. When George Kittle's gone, he's getting older. What does that relationship look like on the field? Does he elevate Ricky Pearsall? Does he elevate whoever comes in after him? It's Latu, who was hurt last year, who comes in to fill a void at tight end. Like, that's what the conversation's going to be like for Brock Purdy, because all he is known is Christian McCaffrey, All-Pro. George Kittle, All-Pro. Deebo, All-Pro. Brandon Ayuk, All-Pro. Trent Williams, haven't even brought up his name, All-Pro at the left tackle. What happens when things, in the offensive line don't go to what you are normally accustomed to? That's another conversation.
I think you're getting to the same point.
Yeah. There
was the pre-Jimmy money, those 6 games that everybody references. And there was the post-Jimmy money. Now, maybe it was the way the Super Bowl ended that truly cemented this conversation, but I felt like however we talked about Jimmy, whether it was casual fans, the NFL as a whole in terms of the media, or the diehard people who break down film, the contract was baked into the conversation around Jimmy Garoppolo. Mm-hmm. Well, if he's making this much, you got to do X, Y, and Z. If he's making this much, then I expect him to do this in these situations. So how does the viewpoint of the fan change the second Brock Purdy gets a $200 million Jared Goff-like deal?
It's a great question. How does it look? Does it look like we're not making the playoffs? Because that's what it is to me. That means if it goes bad, it goes south, he's throwing picks and they're not making the playoffs.
No, $50 million, you have to make the playoffs.
No, that's what I'm saying.
You have to. Every year.
For the heat to come on him is what I'm saying. Yes. Sorry. So that is...
Okay.
So
okay,
let me clarify. If he is doing the things that I was just alluding to, throwing picks, not living up to it, it's going to look horrible. Yes, it's going to look horrible. At the very least, Joe Shasky, he's got to be contending year in and year out in the NFC. Again, I keep calling this a downed NFC because of the quarterback situations there. I like Jalen Hurts. I like Jared Goff. I don't love them like I love Joe Burrow. I love Patrick Mahomes. Hell, you like Josh. People love Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Not my cup of tea, but that's fine. Hell, Justin Herbert. We'll wait this year. That's another test case I'm very interested to see out. And I think this is going to be a very interesting season to watch for him if I'm the 49ers. Justin Herbert, by the way, $218 million guaranteed. What has he done? What has he done in the... No,
I don't love Justin Herbert the way others do. But
why do people love him, though?
Because he's big and strong.
Big and strong.
And he throws the ball a certain way. It aesthetically looks a certain way.
Okay.
But I also think that he had arguably one of the worst head coaches in the game.
Brandon Staley, who's now the 49ers assistant coach.
So I think we've given him certain grace. But I the big strong thing like that, I do believe we play like there's this thing in sports when someone is small and minuscule, Steph Curry, we don't give them the same
Who's
love.
Still 6'3", but yes.
I know. Relative to his
I know.
sport.
I just hate when we say like you could be Steph Curry. I'm 5'11". I'm not being Steph Curry. He's at least 6'.
No doubt. But I'm saying relative to his sport, right? You know what I mean? Like he is below standard size wise. He doesn't fit the mold. Like Derrick Rose fit the mold for people, even though they play the same position.
He's not Kobe. He's not Michael. He's not even LeBron, who's all physical specimens. Yes.
So I do believe we do this. Like, again, I ran into Brock Purdy at the golf range a couple months back.
And you pick up that name you just dropped right there?
My cousin is 6'3", 6'4", okay? He's a big guy.
Yes.
He's a big guy, and he's big and strong. He was towering over Brock Purdy. I couldn't believe how small Brock Purdy was. Now, was he bigger than me? Sure, of course.
I mean, this was pre-buff Brock Purdy we're seeing now, though, Joe Shasky.
I'm talking height and everything. I had ran into Carson Palmer in Vegas when I was in Vegas in December.
Trophy winner, fight on.
I couldn't believe how big he was. Large
the
human. Head, the shoulders, just like the height. Like he was humongous.
He looked like a quarterback.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
So I do believe, and I'm admitting like we do this in sports. We judge people off how they look. You know, I think Jose Altuve, part of the novelty of what makes him so unique is he's so tiny. You know, like Aaron Judge, why is he so captive? He's so big and strong. He doesn't look like anyone else out there. Yeah. And he looks like a guy who is Goliath hitting home runs. And so I think the reverse is true with Purdy. We diminish him because of his diminishing stature, and I think it couldn't be farther from the truth.
It's interesting, right? Because I feel like when he first burst onto the scene, we kind of scoffed and laughed like, oh, maybe he could be Drew Brees, right? Like people were calling in saying, wow, this guy's the next Drew Brees or Joe Montana. And those are two of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, Joe Montana maybe being the greatest. Can he be Drew Brees? Well, Drew Brees, when he got paid after that huge Super Bowl run, Joe Shasky, you know what? What did the Saints really do? They had to gut the roster, right? They had to lose a lot of value there left and right. And they knocked on the door a couple times. Obviously, the PI call, the missed PI call against the Rams cost them a potential, another berth to the Super Bowl, taking on the New England Patriots that year. But I think that's also a cautionary tale about how you build around a quarterback like a Drew Brees, because I'm just going to use him as an example because I feel like his skill set with Brock, not that they're the same players, they're similar. Strength.
Yeah.
I feel like he had an arm, not the biggest, not Patrick Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers, but he had an arm. He threw a nice, pretty overarching pass. I think Brock gets a little bit underrated with his deep ball acumen, his 25 yards plus in the air, stuff like that. But those Saints teams, I kind of look back and be like, man, they kind of left a lot on the table. And Drew Brees got paid a lot of money, and it wasn't until later that he had to start taking some pay cuts there. So that's another cautionary tale. And yes, the size is a factor here because if he gets hurt, then you're looking at it like, Joe Burrow, Philmo Mike called in earlier, Colin Kaepernick had injury concerns there, and even him, he was taking a discount. Yeah. Jimmy Garoppolo, injuries left and right. But I can't bet on injuries like that.
It's football.
That's what I'm saying.
The sport is violently.
So I feel like we're nitpicking there. It's like, but injuries, this and this. That's just baked into the equation. And I feel like just judging, again, I'm going to go back to this, just judging what's out there in the NFC, I got to pay Brock because he's right up there, I feel like, with Jalen Hurts and Jared Goff. I feel like he's better than Goff. I feel like he's right below Hurts, maybe a tick below Stafford. I think Stafford's really good. And I'm interested to see how Caleb Williams looks like this year with the Chicago Bears.
System quarterback Caleb with all the players around him. It's a joke. I'm joking. From the 510.
Please.
As a Saints fan, I said it all the time. We were paying the quarterback so much money, we couldn't field a defense around him, to your point. It's very interesting.
Couldn't.
It's very interesting. I just think that the way that these quarterback contracts are structured, and just the way free agency is, everything, you have to pay this guy. Like you have to pay him. The question is, every million that you save and not giving him a record-setting deal, like if you give him $60 million is a defensive player and maybe a backup offensive lineman.
I do think another thing that's baked into this equation, Joe Shasky, it is very important that your head coach is also the offensive guy.
To scheme up value.
This is massive.
I agree.
Because
I agree
if this was... do you think of any defensive guy? And I know it was different because Josh McDaniels was there forever.
The guy up in Buffalo right now, currently.
Yes. I was going to say Sean McDonough, but that's the other
No,
guy.
it's...
Sean McDermott.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sean McDonough is an ESPN broadcaster.
Always looks clueless on offense.
Yeah, he looks like Bill Burr. We always... Yeah, exactly. Doug McDermott, Sean McDermott. See, I'm doing it again.
Dougie McDermott.
Thank you. I look at that franchise, and he's playing for his job this year.
Yes.
Because he is not on the same level as his quarterback. He's not a quarterback guy.
Nope.
And it's ever since Dayball left, it's been Ken Dorsey. Well, that didn't work out. Now we're going to try something else with another coach. Like, there are things there built in where it's like you are failing Josh Allen in his prime years. I do not feel like Kyle Shanahan is going to fail Brock Purdy, and I don't feel like Brock Purdy is going to fail Kyle Shanahan if he stays healthy. That is very important in this conversation. Just like Drew Brees later in his career, him and Sean Payton, they had that symbiotic relationship. What happened last year with Russell Wilson and Sean Payton? Didn't work.
No.
It just wasn't a fit. Immediately was not a fit. Clean house. Let me get Bo Nix. Say what you will about him. He was in college for 7 years. No, he wasn't a doctor. But Sean Payton feels like he could mold him maybe like a Kirk Cousins, right?
Yeah.
That's how people viewed the Michigan quarterback who just went to Minnesota, right?
McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy. Kevin O'Connell comes from that Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. Sean McVay. They feel like they can mold these guys into their prototypical robot kind of style quarterback. And I think Brock is different from them because I think he does those things, but adds in another layer of, man, I can move around with my feet a little bit. I can extend plays. I can do little Houdini tricks. He still does things that piss off Kyle Shanahan, but they work. That's the thing. They work sometimes, so we can't be too mad at him.
The Ayuk throw in the Seattle game, that was like the fourth person he wanted him to throw to. Right? Yes.
Yeah.
He couldn't believe it, and it was one of the best throws of the season.
And Jimmy does those, and it gets picked off, and he gets chewed out of the sidelines. That's the difference, right? So I say that all to say it's going to be very fascinating to see this symbiotic relationship with Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy once